She planted flowers. HOA Karen called 911. The officer arrived, ready to make an arrest, until his jaw dropped. He froze, staring at my wife, and whispered words that left the entire neighborhood speechless. "Judge, it's you." This is the story of how one petty fine turned into HOA history. When we first moved into Willowbrook Estates, it felt like the kind of neighborhood you see on postcards. Streets curved like ribbons, every lawn trimmed into submission, and houses painted the same shades of beige. It was supposed to be peaceful, our reward after years of hard work. My wife Patricia was the heart of this dream. She had spent decades working long hours, balancing courtroom chaos with family life, and she always dreamed of one thing: a real garden. Not potted plants on a balcony, not a few tulips in a planter, a living, breathing garden of her own. Patricia is calm, steady, and sharp as a razor, the kind of woman who can end an argument with a single raised eyebrow. Across the street, though, lived Brenda Thornfield. She wasn't just a neighbor. She was HOA royalty, always in pressed khakis, clipboard in hand, ready to enforce standards. At first, we waved politely across the street. But peace like that doesn't last long. The spark came the morning Patricia picked up a trowel. Patricia wanted something natural, flowers that belonged in Colorado soil. She planted columbines, paintbrush, and lavender along our front yard. Within days, color spilled across the grass like a painting. She was in heaven. That's when Brenda arrived. 7:30 on a bright Tuesday. Perfume thick enough to choke a horse, clipboard ready. She didn't ask. She announced, "This landscaping violates community standards." She slapped a paper into Patricia's hand, a $200 fine for non-conforming vegetation. Patricia stood up, brushing soil from her knees. Calm, steady, with the voice she used on stubborn defendants, she asked, "Which covenant specifically does this violate?" Brenda's nostrils flared. Section 12.44. Community Aesthetic Standards. Patricia smiled. "Actually, Section 12.44 only restricts dead or dying vegetation. These plants are alive and healthy." For a second, Brenda blinked, realizing she was outmatched. But then her lips curved into a smile that wasn't a smile at all. "We'll see about that," she hissed, heels clicking back to her house. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't over equals. The following week, the fine doubled. A letter, stamped urgent, demanded $400 and warned of property liens if we didn't comply. Brenda had escalated from clipboard warrior to full-blown dictator. Then came the surveillance. Every morning at 6 sharp, Brenda's Lexus crawled past our house. She snapped photos of grass blades, coiled hoses, newspapers on the driveway. Click, 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 like a paparazzi for suburban crimes. Neighbors whispered about her obsession. Frank, a retired veteran, timed his morning walks to catch Brenda in the act. "Morning, Brenda," he'd boom, watching her scramble back into her car. But Brenda wasn't just documenting. She was hunting. And Patricia knew it. Every violation, notice was filed neatly in our binder, timestamped, logged. Patricia wasn't playing checkers. She was playing chess. And me? I sipped my coffee each morning, waiting for the next ridiculous charge to arrive. Brenda thought she was building a case. In truth, she was building her own downfall. The pressure built daily. We could feel it coming, like storm clouds before lightning. And then, one morning, lightning struck. Brenda called 911. Before I tell you about that call, you need to know this. We weren't Brenda's only targets. Patricia had quietly been listening to neighbors, and what she uncovered was worse than we thought. Frank, the Vietnam vet, had been fined for planting tomatoes in the same spot his late wife once grew roses. Brenda called it inappropriate for front yards. Sarah, a single mom juggling 2 jobs, was fined hundreds of dollars because her children drew chalk art on their own driveway. Brenda labeled it unsightly temporary markings. And then there was Mrs. Peterson, a widow in her 70s, cited for excessive bird feeding. Translation: Brenda didn't like the sound of songbirds in the morning. It was a pattern. Vulnerable, busy, or different families. Easy targets who wouldn't fight back. Brenda thrived on fear. But Patricia, Patricia was different. She'd spent years defending fairness from the bench. She wasn't about to bend to an HOA tyrant. And Brenda had no idea the woman she was messing with wasn't just another neighbor. She was a judge. It happened on a Wednesday morning. Patricia was on her knees, gloves dirt-stained, humming softly as she tended the wildflowers. Across the street, Brenda's blinds twitched, then slammed open. "Call the police," she shrieked. "She's destroying community property." At first, I thought I misheard. But then Brenda, in full business suit at 9 a.m., marched into her yard and dialed 911 on speaker, voice loud enough for the entire block. "Operator," she said dramatically. "Send an officer immediately. A resident is vandalizing property." Neighbors peeked from windows. Mrs. Peterson shuffled outside with her walker. Frank leaned against his mailbox, arms folded. Sarah pulled out her phone camera. The stage was set. Minutes later, the squad car rolled up. The engine hummed as the officer stepped out, hand on his belt, ready for a confrontation. Brenda pointed, shaking with fury. "That's her. Arrest her at once." Patricia looked up, calm as ever, trowel still in hand. The officer froze mid-step. His jaw dropped. "Judge," he whispered, disbelief plain on his face. "It's you." And in that instant, the balance of power shifted forever. The air went still. Even the breeze seemed to pause, carrying only the faint scent of lavender from Patricia's garden. "Judge Blackwood," the officer said louder this time, respect flooding his tone. "What's going on here?" Patricia stood, brushing soil from her hands. Calm, collected, every inch the professional she was, even in gardening jeans. Brenda's face drained of color. She's vandalizing HOA property." The officer frowned. "In her own yard?" Yes. Brenda stammered, waving her folder like a magic wand. "She refuses to comply with fines. This is destruction of community standards." Patricia tilted her head. "Officer, my yard contains native plants. Colorado law allows this. The HOA's claims are baseless." Neighbors murmured agreement. Frank stepped forward. "She fined me for growing tomatoes. Said they ruined property values." Sarah raised her phone. "She fined me for chalk art. I have receipts." The officer scribbled notes, his expression tightening. Brenda's words faltered. Her once commanding tone sounded like a child caught lying. Finally, the officer turned to Brenda. "Ma'am, I suggest you stop wasting police resources before this turns into something bigger. False reports carry consequences." The crowd gasped. Patricia's calm smile said it all. Brenda had finally overplayed her hand. By now, Brenda's power had cracked like glass under pressure. The officer asked her for specific covenant language to prove her accusations. Brenda stuttered, flipping through papers, grasping for rules that didn't exist. Each second of silence felt heavier than the last. Patricia, on the other hand, stood like steel. "These are healthy, lawful plants," she said. "The HOA's authority does not extend here. This is harassment." Frank's voice boomed. "And theft. She's been pocketing our fines." Neighbors erupted, one after another, sharing stories of unfair citations, threats, intimidation. The officer's notebook filled fast. Brenda's folder slipped from her trembling hands, papers scattering like confetti across her perfect lawn. "You're all ungrateful," she shrieked. "I've worked tirelessly for this community." But no one was listening anymore. For once, Brenda's voice carried no power. The officer closed his notebook, gaze steady. "Ma'am, this matter is under review. But you should know, filing false reports is serious. Don't test me again." Brenda opened her mouth, then closed it. Silence. For the first time, Brenda Thornfield had nothing left to say. Within days, word spread. The neighborhood demanded an HOA meeting. And when residents gathered, the verdict was swift. Brenda was out, resigned under pressure, stripped of her title, and exposed for mishandling funds. Her fancy suits couldn't hide the truth anymore. Every neighbor who had once feared her stood taller that week. The clipboard queen had fallen. Patricia's wildflower garden became more than just a patch of flowers. It was a symbol of resistance, of fairness, of the power of standing your ground when you know you're right. And as Brenda disappeared from the neighborhood, that garden bloomed brighter than ever. Looking back, it still amazes me. One garden, one petty fine, one phone call. That's all it took to bring down a woman who thought she ruled our neighborhood. Patricia never raised her voice, never lost her composure. She simply stood firm, backed by truth, while Brenda's empire of intimidation collapsed. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it blooms quietly, in colors too bright to ignore. So let me ask you, what would you do if your HOA called cops on you for planting flowers? Drop your story in the comments. We read every single one, and some may appear in future episodes. Because here's the truth. Good neighbors will always outlast petty tyrants. And in the end, justice, like Patricia's garden, always finds a way to grow.